Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about one of the most popular tanks during the Second World War in more detail. We've talked about this tank in the past, you know it, you love it, it's the IS-2, and I decided to give it a video of its own. The IS-2 was named after the leader of the Soviet Union when this tank entered service, and his name was Josef Stalin. The IS-2 was designed in 1943 and production started that same year, and it entered service in 1944 on the Eastern Front. And some sources claim that this tank is still in service to this day. The countries who use the IS-2 include the following nations: the Soviet Union, China, Cuba, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, World War II Germany, only in captured usage, Hungary, North Korea, Poland, Romania and South Ossetia. The IS-2's predecessor was also known as the IS-85 or IS-1. The main difference between the IS-1 and the IS-2 is the main armament. The IS-1 had an 85mm main armament, while the IS-2 used the 122mm as its main armament. The IS-2 was placed in a special tank regiment. These were reserved for important attacks, often to spearhead attempts to break through fortified German positions like anti-tank defenses and bunkers. The IS-2 supporting infantry in the assault on destroying bunkers, buildings, dug-in weapons and engaging German armoured vehicles. Once a breakthrough was achieved, lighter and more mobile vehicles were used for the exploitation and the mopping up. The IS-2 seemed to be the trump card from Stalin to be used against the Germans during the later stages of the war. Although this is what a lot of people believe, in reality there are some defects. Like I said before, it had a very powerful main armament. It was the 122mm D25T. This gun wasn't great for an anti-tank role though. Although it was a very powerful gun, it lacked the ability to reload quickly, and spotting other vehicles was difficult. The average rounds per minute was between 2 to 4. This means that the average reloading time is between the 30 and 15 seconds. The 122mm D25T had a muzzle velocity of 780 meters per second and could penetrate up to 140mm of armor over 500 meters away. The secondary armaments of the IS-2 model 1944 was DSHK and 3 DT machine guns. This was to deal with infantry units or lightly armored vehicles. It was decently armored. I will show you the armor values now on screen so you can have a look at it yourself. Its armor thickness ranged from 150mm to 30mm. The front hull, turret front and the lower glazes were all 100mm thick. And the manlet was 155mm thick. Hull side thickness ranged from 90mm to 130mm and the turret side was 90mm thick. The IS-2's armor was primarily composed of casting, which involves pouring molten metal in a mold and letting it cool. This method was done to reduce production cost and increase the numbers of vehicles which could be built. Casting also made it easier to vary the shape and thickness of the armor. The IS-2 weighed 46 tons. This was an advantage it had on the German heavies, because it was 11 tons lighter. The IS-2 model 1944 had a 12-cylinder diesel motor V2 engine, which could produce about 600 horsepower if necessary. This puts its horsepower to ton ratio at 13, and its top speed was 37 km an hour. The IS-2 actually had a pretty good operational range, which sits at 295 km. Which is still actually the highest operational range we've seen so far on this channel. The IS-2 was built about 3,854 times. This at the time cost about 64,400 rubles to build. The IS-2 also had an advantage over the German heavies. This was because it had a lower profile. Its height was 2.7 meters, width 3.1 meters and length 9.9 meters. Now we come to the fun part, operational history. The IS-2s were deployed with the elite guard battalions which acted on request wherever a stronghold was encountered. Their first action was on February 1944 in Ukraine. A single unit of 10 IS-2s from the 72nd Regiment engaged and claimed to have destroyed no less than 41 Tigers and Ferdinands in several engagements between April and May 1944, while only claiming a loss of 8 tanks. While the German heavy tanks could knock the IS-2 out, they had no real answer for the 122mm gun, which easily outgunned them in terms of raw firepower. The Germans, however, did still have an edge in reloading speed and spotting ability. During one of these battles, a single IS-2 was damaged and later examined by Guderian himself. whom concluded Stalin was a worthy name. I quote, "Do not get involved in a fight with the Stalin without overwhelming numerical superiority in the field. I believe that for every Stalin we must account for an entire platoon of tigers. Any attempt by a single tiger to fight a Stalin one-on-one can only result in a loss of a priceless war machine." End of quote. On the 13th of August 1944, the Germans launched a very powerful counterattack led by the brand new heavy tanks. The battle lasted until the 31st of August. The Russians placed a well-prepared fortified defensive positions and they claimed that they knocked out 4 Koningstigers and damaged 7, 3 Panthers and even a giant Yak Tiger. As it later appeared, the 11 IS-2s from the 71st Independent Heavy Tank Regiment had successfully repelled an assault from a total of 14 Panzer VI Aus B Koningstiger from the 501st Heavy Panzer Regiment. The battle raged at only 600 meters and only 3 IS-2s were destroyed and 7 were damaged. Other battle honors include Leningrad Front, the Baltic States and the liberation of Lithuania and Latvia. During the Battle of Berlin, the IS-2 sought to destroy an entire building with their powerful HE rounds. The operation lasted till the 2nd of May 1945 with more than 76 IS-2s destroyed in action. Most of these destructions were caused by a Panzerfaust. After the war, the IS-2M was a new standard of modifications, which was applied to nearly all the remaining IS-2s. By the 1950s, the heavy tank concept was deemed obsolete due to the new emerging concept of the main battle tank. To put it simply, this concept was basically combining the medium tank speed with the firepower and protection of the heavy tank. In the 1960s, these tanks were put into the reserve of the Red Army, but they still were used by a couple of other armies like Cuba, China and North Korea. And now we're going to do something new. I'll call it My Opinion on the Tank. Head over to my community page to vote if you would like to see this concept return into the future. In my opinion, I think the IS-2 in general is a very formidable tank. If you think about its strength and weaknesses, it boils down for me into having a great main armament, but it falls short on the practicality part. For example, it takes some time to reload and the optics are significantly worse than the German ones, which puts it at a disadvantage in a tank-to-tank battle. It had a lot of anti-personnel possibilities, for example its great high explosive round and several machine guns. It also had sufficient armor to protect its crew from enemy fire, and aesthetically looking it is one of the best looking tanks of the war, although this won't help you out in combat. In my conclusion, if it was used for the objective it was designed for, it was a very good tank. Anyway guys, that was it for today's video. I think this is actually one of our longest videos we've made so far, so if you'd like to show your appreciation, just like and subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment down below if you have some more information, stuff like that. And other than that, have a very good day.